Wow. What? I seriously can't believe what I'm seeing, but this is not the first time a major publication aligned, typically with the left, has come out in defense of Donald Trump. Because I think it was the Washington Post, I could be wrong, that said there is a crisis, Trump is right, or something to that effect. Now we have the editorial board of the New York Times, Congress, give Trump his border money. What? I'm flabbergasted. You know, a bunch of celebrities came out recently, a couple. You got Rob Schneider, who's usually more aligned with conservative. I don't know his political background, but he's a comedian. And you've got now, I think, Kevin Costner saying what is happening with our political discourse. And it's absolutely, wow, I'm really surprised to see now even the New York Times is coming out saying it's not for building the wall, but there is a crisis on the border. So what they say is President Trump is right. There is a crisis at the southern border, just not the one he rants about. There is no pressing national security threat, no invasion of murderers, drug cartels, etc. No matter how often Mr. Trump delivers such warnings, they bear little resemblance to the truth. But as record numbers of Central American families flee violence and poverty in their homelands, they are overwhelming United States border systems, fueling a humanitarian crisis of overcrowding, disease, and chaos. Oh my God. Wow, the New York Times. Well, this is good news. Look, Donald Trump does talk about a bunch of these things that I think are way blown out of proportion, drug cartels, etc. But we have a real crisis, and the one I've talked about in every video I've done is the humanitarian issue. People in the desert getting sick, overwhelming our system, detention facilities, more than double capacity, people aren't getting food. This is not good. It's a serious crisis. And they point out that political gamesmanship is causing people, here we go, something needs to be done soon. Unfortunately, political gamesmanship once again threatens to hold up desperately needed resources. Wow. On Wednesday, the White House sent Congress a request for $4.5 billion in emergency funding to help manage the surge. In a letter to lawmakers, the acting director of the White House Budget Office, Russell Vought, sought to convey the scope of the challenge. In February, U.S. Customs and Border Protection encountered more than 76,000 illegal border crossers and inadmissible aliens. And in March, that number exceeded 100,000, the highest monthly level in more than a decade, Mr. Vought wrote. He described what he said were alarming numbers of women and children jammed into Border Patrol stations never intended as long-term shelters. Funding for vital services is not expected to last through the fiscal year, Vought said. Most urgently, the program that deals with unaccompanied minors is expected to run dry next month, requiring resources to be diverted from other programs and leading to a further deterioration in conditions. The New York Times goes full far right. It's a manufactured crisis, I thought. The New York Times is basically going full far right. And obviously I don't really mean they're far right, but of course that's the opinion you hear from these other outlets. Defending Donald Trump's position, supporting the White House administration, saying Congress, give him the money. What the House is controlled by the Democrats. Why would they give Trump the money he needs for this? While the request is light on specifics, it does draw some important outlines. Nearly 3/4 of the funds, $3.3 billion, would be earmarked for humanitarian needs, with much of it flowing to the Office of Refugee Resettlement, the agency responsible for unaccompanied minors. None of the money would go towards Mr. Trump's border wall. This is what the White House wants. So why would it be jammed up? Political gamesmanship. It's a funny way to frame it, but sure, politicking. Several $100 million would, however, go toward shoring up border security operations, including increasing the number of detention beds overseen by ICE. This, for Democrats, is a non-starter. Here we go. This is the nightmare we're facing. But look, there are stories every day. For those of you who have similar politics to me, who feel every day like the world's going crazy, you're all alone, you're not. You're not. And this is what's fascinating. When I see celebrities come out and say, no, free speech is a right. When I see the AFL-CIO say, no Green New Deal, that's wrong, I'm like, you're not crazy. I'm not crazy. The left is going crazy. But it's not all of them. It's that these fringe minorities and politicking is destroying the fabric of the left. The left is in civil war. But rest assured, even the New York Times is now coming out and saying, give Trump his money. Recognizing the need for security and for the humanitarian aid. This is what the White House is asking for. And the New York Times is saying, just do it. Yes, it's good. They're saying there's a crisis. Of course, they want to do a little pushback. oh, Trump's ranting about these things. No. Hold on. You can see here's the virtue signal, right? And I'm going to respect this for one reason. They recognize the White House asked for money. They said, here's what the money is for. Yes, give it to them. The White House didn't ask for money to deal with these issues. The White House asked for money to deal with the humanitarian crisis and the illegal border crossings from families. So sure, Donald Trump often talks about these issues. He does talk about the families. He does talk about, they're good people who are still entering the country illegally, and we need to do something about it. It's a crisis. And the White House is asking for money to deal with this, not cartels. So you can see that framing from the New York Times, but maybe that's what they need. Maybe the left needs to hear this. There is a crisis. Maybe it's about time. The New York Times and other big publications came up and said, we need to talk about this. So let's go down. The debate. So they say the Democrats, it's a non-starter. The debate over, and keep in mind, AOC is saying no money for ICE. No money. The debate over the permissible size of the detainee population has grown white hot. Democrats contend that the president brought this housing crisis on himself with his push to scoop up as many non-citizens as possible, rather than prioritizing those considered dangerous as previous administrations did. Instead of asking for more money, Democrats assert ICE should redirect existing resources to the border. Detention beds were a sticking point in this winter's budget negotiations as well, ultimately resulting in a convoluted compromise no one seemed to understand. Since then, the issue has festered as the administration has adopted policies that will further swell the detainee population, such as last month's order for immigration judges to keep more migrants locked up while their asylum claims are processed, rather than allow them to post bail. But what happened to Trump saying they can wait in Mexico? Like, if you come to the border, you can apply. Here's the thing. A lot of these people are coming from Central American countries, Honduras, Guatemala. They're in Mexico. They're not facing the same threat they were back at home. Trump said, how about you wait in Mexico until your asylum claims are processed? That would alleviate a lot of the tension, wouldn't it? I'm not saying you should or shouldn't do it. I'm just saying that's one of the ideas talked about. I wonder why that doesn't happen. Even if, look, when the New York Times comes out and says, hey, y'all, here's a problem, let's solve it, do what the White House wants, I think it's fair to point out we got some unity here. And the Democrats should probably stop politicking. They're pointing the finger at the Democrats, okay? The Democratic chairwoman of the House Appropriations Committee, Nita Lowey of New York, said the administration was seeking billions of dollars to double down on cruel and ill-conceived policies and bail out ICE for locking up more migrant families than it could humanely accommodate. But until better policies are in place, Democrats need to find a way to provide money for adequate shelter. I completely agree. I don't understand how we're even having an argument. Look, you might not like Trump or his policies, but how are we just going to let little girls die in the desert? It's mind-blowing to me. You want to talk about the plight of the migrant family? Well, get more resources down there to deal with this. It's insane. The Democrats just roadblock, saying no. They don't want to give Trump his win. But Trump is actually doing something about what's happening on the border, and we are seeing a massive increase. You know, it's dominoes falling over. I'll tell you what I think is happening. You hear these stories from the left. As long as the mainstream left keeps saying no to Trump's security, then you're going to hear encouragement from people who are coming up. Excuse me. There's going to be people saying, now's my chance. Got to go do it. Right? And then what ends up happening is, as more people come, more people try and join in because, hey, look, if everybody runs, they can't stop everybody, right? People are coming in. They're getting approved. So more people keep coming because the idea is in their heads. It's spreading around. Now is the time to go. So now we're seeing 100,000 plus record numbers. More people apprehended this year so far in 5 months than for all of last year. And the Democrats are saying no. Look, man, don't ask me. I'm just the social liberal who's agreeing with the New York Times on this issue. Democrats have other low-level concerns as well. Excuse me. Such as ensuring that the Office of Refugee Resettlement is not used as an enforcement agency or that the contractors and facilities used to care for children meet certain standards. As a condition of handing over additional billions, they are likely to push for at least modest increases in oversight. They should aim to keep such tinkering as narrow and targeted as possible. If the White House is serious about needing the money, it should be prepared to agree to a few conditions. I agree. And convey the need for flexibility to Senate Republicans. As for the clash over detention beds, knowing how toxic the matter is, the White House would have been wise to leave it out of a request it needs to advance quickly. Postponing that battle for another day, both sides need to dial back the fighting words, resist the temptation to finger point, and find a creative way through this minefield. And that about wraps it up. But here's the thing. This is the editorial board, right? I want to make sure there's a clarification. They say the editorial board represents the opinions of the board, its editor, and the publisher. It is separate from the newsroom and op-ed section. The editorial board is like the New York Times' company opinion. That's my understanding of it. I could be wrong. But this is huge. The New York Times is coming out, straight up framing the narrative, give Trump his money. Yes, they point out both sides got to wind down those fighting words. But it's about time somebody in the mainstream associated with the left, like I understand the New York Times isn't overtly far left, but they are left. And if you look at any like bias fact check, they'll say New York Times is center left. It's about time the mainstream stood up and said, this is an issue. There's so much I need to win that you actually have these families risking their lives, being incentivized to do these things, kids getting sick, overcrowding, lack of food, lack of resources. And then what happens is, as the numbers explode, as more people come, and these kids get sick, the Democrats then turn around and say, oh no, look at these kids, it's your fault. It's ICE's fault that these kids are wandering through the desert. No, it's not. Something needs to be done. The people who are coming here need protection, they need food, they need shelter. Let's figure this out, because it's too much now. And I'm sick and tired of the politicking. Trump wants to build a border wall, I get it. Maybe it won't solve the problem, maybe it will. A lot of people want that border fence. The idea is to discourage people from coming and stop them from coming, okay? Because it's a dangerous journey. I understand that. But I will say, regardless of the wall, regardless of the Democrats, regardless of 2020, you've got real people here. For whatever reason they're coming, they're here. You want to stop them? By all means, have that conversation. But Democrats give Trump his border money. Wow, powerful. Seriously. I got a couple more videos coming up for you in a few minutes. I will see you shortly.